You don't go on a big platform where you have thousands or millions of followers and say such. I personally think it's definitely body shaming and definitely has hints of fat phobia in there.
Is he, Vivian, drawing attention to the issue of health? Is the subtext of his remark that actually we need to make sure that everyone has, you know, as slim a waistline as possible?
Definitely not. I think if you are to speak about health, there's ways to go around it. You don't quote tweet another person's picture or image and say that they're not beautiful. You know, we're already in a society that beauty has been put into a box as to what it's supposed to be, when beauty is not defined. Beauty is big, small, large, whatever you want beauty to be, that's what beauty is. And I think that's where it's kind of wrong of him to say. It's just not right.
I guess if a doctor were to examine or have a consultation with this model, Yumi Nu, he might say to her, just as her physician, you might like to or consider losing weight because when you get older, you'll be susceptible to type 2 diabetes, high blood pressure and the rest of it. I mean, is that a conversation we should be having, that body positivity is one thing, but, you know, glamorizing or glorifying ill health is another?
So I think it's always down to every individual to worry about their own body. You can't speak about someone else's body and say, oh, you know, you look a certain way, so you're definitely unhealthy. I myself, as a plus size model, I work out, I have a routine. So many other people have routines and they might be of a bigger stature. You have, you know, models that, you know, walk runways in Paris and you know, France and all these places, and they're not as healthy as plus size models, but you can't put the term plus size and associate it with fat, associate it with obesity. There is a conversation to be had in terms of health, but there's ways to go around that conversation. You don't body shame. You don't say you're not attractive, you're not beautiful, you're this, you're that. Instead, you say, oh, you know, what's going on? Why, you know, what's making this crisis bigger? What can we do to assist people? You know, everyone keeps saying we've come out of a pandemic. Be kinder with your words, be nicer to people. And he just did not follow that rule, did he? And yeah,
good luck with that. He did not get the memo, Vivian. Let's speak to Shauna Phillips. Shauna, welcome to the show. Love Island star. Looking forward to the new series. What do you think about the comments of this man? Is he guilty of cruelty and fat shaming, or does he have a point?
No, he's definitely just being a typical white-blooded male who thinks they're just entitled to have an opinion on a woman's body. I'm pretty sure if you ask that woman, would you like to sleep with this man? She would say, absolutely not. So why he thinks he's entitled to have an opinion about what she looks like, I don't know. And I think it's just kind of this woke culture. Now, don't get me wrong, I am definitely one to call out snowflakes here and there. But I think this is just him trying to be standing out from the crowd and just calling out whatever he thinks is now woke, but he's just gone so far the wrong way, it's embarrassing.
I mean, what is your view about women in magazines and their bodies generally, Shauna? Do you think that editors should encourage people with more normal bodies to actually be on the front of magazines and on billboards?
Of course, and not only that, but plus size is relative, because a plus size here would be completely different to a plus size in America. There's some websites where plus size is deemed size 14 and the average size of a woman in the UK is a size 16. That just doesn't make sense at all. And we've just been kind of conditioned to believe that what's beautiful is what we see in the magazines. And that's from a very, very young age. I remember buying magazines like Bliss that would teach you how to lose 14 pounds before going on holiday. And Bliss was for a teenage audience. So if that's what we've been brought up to reading, of course we're going to think that's what's beautiful. But, I mean, like Vivian said, I'm pretty sure you could have a plus-size model and a model that walked in Paris Fashion Week, and their health compared to both just would be completely different, because one model has starved themselves for weeks just to walk on this runway.
I don't appreciate, Steve Miller, the sentiment or indeed words used by Jordan Peterson, but is it an example of calling a spade, a bit of tough love, that he doesn't want to normalise being overweight?
First of all, I think you're all beautiful, by the way. Yes, I think you're all beautiful on this panel. I can.
Steve, you're absolutely smoking hot yourself.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Keep shouting that.
You look a bit like me, but after I've had work done.
Listen, let me answer your question, right? Let me answer this question. What happened with this guy is that he constructed his tweet in completely the wrong way, I believe. I think what he's actually saying is that actually to normalize obesity is not beautiful. And I think that's what he was saying, looking at the tweet. Because if you look at it, he's put, sorry, not beautiful. And no amount of authoritarian tolerance is going to change that. And I think what he's saying is to accept and to normalize the nations becoming fatter and to glorify it and to celebrate it is not something that should be done. And that is not a beautiful way to go. So I think we have to give him a little bit of, we have to kind of have some understanding for that, because we do know that, and all of the research is clear on this, if you are obese, you are more likely to suffer with type 2 diabetes, heart disease, strokes. Now there's research suggesting that obesity can trigger early onset dementia as well. So I think we've got to keep it a bit real. He could have chosen his words a little bit better. But does he have a point that we're going from the catwalk to the fat walk? Maybe he does.
Steve Miller, what rules would you put in place in terms of magazines, billboard adverts to not glorify being overweight?
I can answer that direct. I would ban plus-size models on fronts of magazines, but I would also ban size 0 models on the front of magazines for one reason. Obesity puts you on death row. And anyone that's denying that are completely mistaken and not reading the health research. It is clear. If you are too fat, you are much more likely to have an early grave.
Blimey, gosh. Well, it's tough love coming from Steve Miller. Vivian, would you like to respond to what Steve has had to say?
First, I'd like to say that, everyone's entitled to their own opinion and you always have to respect other people's opinion. I quite frankly disagree with what he said, only because I'm having a really big moment of a brain freeze at the moment, because it's just it's very confusing for you to say, don't promote obesity, don't do this, don't do that. But there's so many things in life that shouldn't be promoted, but nobody's saying, oh, don't smoke, don't drink alcohol, don't do this, don't do that. For so long, we had size 0 models, all over our faces in magazines, print, runway, TV commercials, and it was never a problem. No one was ever saying you're pushing the narrative of, anorexia, or you're pushing the narrative of, unhealthy eating disorders and things like that. But, God forbid someone that's got a little bit of weight on them graces a magazine cover.
Let me tell you, Vivian, there's no brain freeze from your point of view. You've spoken very succinctly, and I couldn't agree with you more. If we're going to start banning things from billboards, let's ban fast food adverts, and
ban Coke, ban McDonald's, ban everything.
Yeah. Let's not cancel models from the billboards.
I'm surprised at you saying that.
Steve,
I'm surprised at you saying that, because I think when you talk about advertising, you're talking about hypnosis, really, the power of suggestion, and to suggest to the nation that being overweight, dangerously overweight, is great, and if you're happy and you're fat, clap your hands, is a good way to go, I think actually is pretty negligent, I have to say. Because what we do know, and I will repeat it, is that this country is actually forecast to be the fattest nation in Europe in 10 years' time. And it is much more likely that the strain on the NHS because of that is going to grow, and people will be suffering badly. May I add, from 13 or 14 cancers directly related to obesity. So anybody suggesting that celebrating obesity by great big promotions of plus size, sorry, no, absolutely not.
Viewers, details of your very successful...
Have you seen
Vivian?
promotion of obesity. It was not on the front cover. You know, she was just in a swimsuit in her natural state. She can't help how she looks. And at the end of the day, no one can. So if that's her natural state, they haven't put on there, oh yeah, be obese, everyone, or make sure you know, go in this lane to look like her. They haven't said that. She's standing there as a beautiful woman, you know, very confident in her own skin, showing the world.
Listen, she
that,
is.
I
You're
can be
right.
sexy
You're
too.
right. She
For
is
so long,
beautiful.
size zero,
She is a
you know, models
woman.
were sexy.
But she...
We're changing the narrative now. It's 2022, so I think it's a bit old to just rely on that.
I'm going to bring I'll bring my panel in, Steve, and I'll give details to our viewers of your weight loss program at the end of the item. A quick word with you on this, Shauna, before I go to the rest of my panel. What's your reaction there to sort of the health argument that Steve's making, Shauna?
So firstly, that woman is absolutely not dangerously obese. And also, if it was a size zero woman having a cigarette on the cover of Sports Illustrated, would we be having a conversation about health? I absolutely don't think so.
OK, well, let's now bring in another model. In fact, frankly, you should all be models, because we've got Rebecca Jane, who is a very, very beautiful lawyer and commentator, and Leilani, who is a model and also a broadcaster and writer as well. Leilani, you have posed for many a professional photo shoot. Do you think that plus-size models are beautiful?
Well, let's just look at the Sports Illustrated situation. Jordan Peterson is far from woke. He's the absolute opposite of woke. He's completely not PC, and he'll speak it as he feels. And I think at 23, I think she's early 20s, that girl. She probably hasn't had children. It's not a great body image for a girl. And I agree, anorexically, painfully skinny models of the 90s also aren't. And I would have always said that. Absolutely, they aren't as well. But she's not as obese as some of the plus-size models that we are seeing. I mean, we've seen some morbidly obese plus-size models, even trying to promote in like Nikes or Calvin Kleins or whatever, and they are morbidly obese. It's so unhealthy. It's like a walking heart attack you're looking at, and they just shouldn't be there as a role model for anybody.
Yeah, and Rebecca Jane, what's your view on this? Whose side do you take? Everything's tribal now, so you're either with Jordan Peterson or you're not.
Well, I think this might be the first time in a long time a little bit on the fence. But what I am absolutely deadly against, which is the one thing I've heard on all aspects of this whole conversation, is judgment. And all I hear is one side bashing another side and the other side's bashing another side. For me, this picture of this lady, I absolutely respect Jordan Peterson's view that he does not find that beautiful. That's fine. He can think that. Beauty is in the eye of the beholder, which is what everybody seems to be forgetting here. Personally, I think she's got an absolutely beautiful face. I don't think it's something that we should be looking up to as to a society of this is what we now all need to be. But on the other point of that as well, I also don't think that we need to be... there's a whole lot of skinny, for want of a better phrase, models that I don't think are beautiful either. The problem here is judgment, and everybody's got one. Just accept people have got opinions, and it's fine.
Leilani?
But can I say, also, when you go on the cover of Sports Illustrated, it is a male-orientated magazine. It's not really there for women. So, of course, men are going to pick it up and have an opinion. And if you're going to go on the cover of any magazine, maybe not necessarily adverts, but if you're going to be on a magazine or in the newspapers modelling as yourself, I think you're putting yourself out there for people to have an opinion on you. And they should be able to have an opinion. If that's how Jordan Peterson feels, then he should be able to say it. And
we can't get offended by everything.
Yeah.
And we are all offended by everything.
Rebecca Jane, don't you think there's something quite sexist about a middle-aged man like Jordan Peterson, as mentioned there by Shauna, commenting on a young woman's body? How dare he? I mean, it's extremely ungentlemanly language, isn't it?
I don't think the language is used is appropriate. I do think that the language he is used is inappropriate. However, I'm not going down this whole white men can't comment business. I'm sorry, but absolutely not. If you put yourself on the cover of Sports Illustrated, anybody's going to have an opinion. We sit ourselves on this programme and every man and his dog's got an opinion. We have to accept that. And tell you what, we get trolled to high heaven for it. That's part of the job, and that's part of the job that she signed up for. White men? No, absolutely not. Yet again, just another woke statement. No.
And also, I think a lot of women would comment if some guy came on...
Worse than men.
Imagine if they were on Men's Health with a beer belly. I think a few women would comment. So.
Yes, it would, yeah. Yeah, and you know what, as well? Like, I went to a life drawing class last week on a hen party, and obviously it was a man who was the person that we were life drawing. It's like, again, we're objectifying men, and we don't say anything about that.
No, well, that's a fair point. Vivian, there are quite a few high-profile women in the music industry who are curvaceous. Is there a point at which we decide as a society that someone is unhealthily big? For example, Adele before her weight loss, or Lizzo?
I mean, thank you for that question, because it's been mentioned just now that so much judgment is being passed onto people. I think it's down to nobody to pass any form of judgment onto anyone, regardless of their size, whether they're a size 0 or a size 50, and whether they're into music, arts, entertainment, pottery, nursing, whatever it is. I think nobody should be judged for the way they look. Nobody should be judged for the way they are as a person. I just think it's just unnecessary. Life would be so much easier if everybody, kept their unwanted opinions to themselves.
Shauna, one final thought. I think that there's agreement across the board that there shouldn't be judgment towards women in relation to how they look, and we're all agreed that everyone we've talked about is just gorgeous. But just in relation to that health issue, at some point as a society, do we have to send a message that being overweight is suboptimal, that it isn't a good idea, that you can be gorgeous, but that being a healthy weight needs to be an aspiration, rather than just saying, I'm really big and that's great?
Yeah, of course. And I think also every height holds weight different. We already know that the BMI index is outdated and just doesn't work. But I mean, I'm sure if you ask this lady, what size would you like to be? It's not about what size you want to be. It's about just being okay with how you are now, regardless whether you want to change things in the future, whether you want to get a little healthier. It's just about being okay in the moment. And I think that's the kind of message that I want to put across.
Welcome to the GB News YouTube channel. You can watch us live 24 hours a day, catch up on your favourite shows, and join in the conversation in the comments below.
Don't forget to subscribe and you'll never miss any of our exclusive content.